Let me know when we're ready.
You need to speak with reverb now.
Yeah.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority meeting for March 9th. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick roll call and we've got some guests here. So I've got Grant, Arthur, Mike Fox here in the room, and I see Catherine and Jake Edwards online. Myself here in the room for Washington, and online I think I see Jacob Anderson, Mark Fleming, and Ben. So we do have a quorum. I wanted to take just a few minutes to introduce Tom Goldstein, okay, sorry, from HRWSBA, who has come up for a couple meetings here today, and just let him talk a little bit about. He is our representative at Federal Highways and was able to be here today. So, Tom, you want to just introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Tom Goldstein. I am the oversight manager for Federal Highway Administration, representing our Oregon and Washington divisions. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Do want to emphasize we understand the importance of this project and how and want to show our support for you guys and doing this. Really appreciate the collaborative relationship with folks and look forward to continuing that. Appreciate Mike Fox, Eric, and Grant, and also Jake. I've been working pretty closely with these guys, and of course Mike Shannon and all others who are involved. But looking forward to at the local level, we can't help with the helping you guys get the grant money, but we'll support you if it goes through, and we're hoping for you guys that we get the money. So, but again, appreciate the opportunity to sit in here, and we had a great meeting this morning. I think it was productive and getting everybody on the same page and looking for ways to move the project forward. So. Thanks.
Tom, I wanted to thank you as well on behalf of the Bridge Authority for finally figuring out the magic sauce to get the CDS funds separated from the INFRA grant, and it's in process. We got a couple little things with ODOT to do, I think, but Tom's got his piece done, and we're on the path. It's in the grand scheme of things, it's not a very big number, but it's going to make a big difference in some of the things that we can just manage proactively here coming up over the next year. So,
oh, good. I'm glad it. Yeah, I'm sorry it took as long as it did. It was funny once I got figured out which way we were going. It actually took like a day or two.
Yeah,
it's kind of.
It's all the planning effort to figure out what you're trying to accomplish before it can actually happen. So thank you again for doing that.
Thanks.
And I know you have a drive ahead of you. It was snowing at my house when I left, so I don't know what's going to happen. So if you want to get ahead of that, you're welcome to skate on out of here. But
I know there's a couple folks I came with who are a little antsy about the Portland rush hour. So.
Okay. That's a real thing too.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. So I guess we're down to agenda. Are there any modifications or additions to the agenda? Hearing none. Do we would go with the agenda that we have?
Ask if there are any objections.
No objections.
Move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay. All those.
Commissioner Wilson, I didn't hear a roll call. This is Kelly. I didn't.
Yeah, they did it
that
before we got the audio fixed.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't hear it. Great. Thank
you. Okay. Meeting minutes.
We moved to approve the agenda. There was a second.
You can just ask if there are any objections now.
Okay. Are there any objections? All right, hearing none.
Moving on.
So meeting minutes, do we have any comments on the meeting minutes? Can I just accept the meeting minutes as presented, or do I need to have someone provide a motion?
Move that we approve the meeting minutes as included.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will do public comment, and I'll start here in the room. We'd like to keep comments to 3 minutes per person and 30 minutes total, which I don't think we bumped against yet. And then we'll go to online. Any comments here in the room? Hearing none. Are there any public comments online? Kevin?
Hey, good afternoon. Kevin Greenwood, Executive Director, Port of Hood River. I do want to introduce someone to the Bridge Authority. She is online as well, and her name is Amanda Rose. And Amanda is the relatively new Director of Real Estate and Asset Management for the Port of Hood River. And so she is kind of our lead person managing bridge activity. And I know that she's worked a little with Michael and Kiewit as well. So Amanda does have a very brief announcement on bridge closures. And so I'm going to mute myself, and Amanda's going to give the Bridge Authority an update on bridge closures coming up.
Hi guys, happy to be here. So Megan Channel, who is our capital planning director, and I plan to have bridge closures occur April 3rd and April 10th between 12:30 a.m. and 6 a.m., though we will try to contain those closures to a shorter time frame. The April 3rd closure will entail replacing the bridge expansion gasket on the Oregon side. And during that expansion gasket work, we're going to go ahead and measure for the new signs Megan has ordered to place for the new tolling that they've been working on for quite some time. And then that is the work that will take place. April 10th is to go ahead and replace those signs with the most updated stuff to show changes for electronic tolling.
Great. Thank you, Amanda.
You're very welcome.
Did you have any other comments, Kevin?
Nope, that's great. We're very happy to have Amanda on board.
Great. Welcome, Amanda. Thank you for the update.
Thank you, guys.
Right, executive reports. I don't have anything. Grant, would you like to?
Well, Tom was here earlier, introduced him to everybody. I'm going to hold off on anything because Ben's going to give us a report from Funding and Finance. I don't want to steal his thunder. So good.
All right. Sounds great. Mr. Shannon.
Yeah, we've talked about a couple of these. Tom, FHWA is still reviewing the Matilda MOA, so we're waiting on their signature on that MOA. The division, as we said, has also been able to separate the CDS from money. They also, I'm going to steal the thunder that Grant was probably wanting to not steal here. The infra-grant agreement did get moved from FHWA to the Office of the Secretary of Transportation. So that is now to the next step. So we are working on who that went to. We do have a copy of what was sent over to the Office of the Secretary, and we will be reaching out to them to have some conversations about what their process is going to look like. So,
and can you remind people of what was special about what was done to this?
Yes, so that infra grant agreement was for the 200 million that we were awarded back in 2024. We had asked for that funding to be split into two parts, $75 million for design and 125 million for construction. It did have the congressionally directed spending in it, but we've since removed that, and that was removed from the version that went to the Office of the Secretary. So the only thing that went to them was for the 125 and the 75. FHWA forwarded that version to the Office of the Secretary. So we will see what they want to do, whether they'll approve it as a phased distribution or not. And then based on that, we'll figure out how to move towards a fully signed agreement. So,
Mike, did you say that we've got a copy of the final one that went up?
we do have a copy of the final one, so we'll get that out to everybody. We got that late last week.
Just to kind of just throw on that. So the importance of that was that was set up before we had the state match, and we were looking at using that to fund what we're currently doing with state dollars.
Correct.
So there's less of a need to do that. However, if they award it that way, it gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of managing some risks proactively as we go through the design phase.
Correct. It would give us some flexibility in the pre-construction work that we would do, as well as balancing the match money for state and federal as well. So
great, thanks.
And so the PDV team, Progressive Design Build team, continue to work on the borings. They're still out in the river drilling borings on the Oregon side. So I think that'll be shifting over maybe this week to the Washington side.
There's one is on the Washington shore right now.
Okay, so they moved
all the way over. Yeah.
So
last night I watched them start to move, and this morning I saw them in the new spot.
So just interesting what that was, and things fill the gaps in here as needed. But what that was we were able to actually coordinate with Bonneville Dam to actually raise the pole in order to allow them access. So we worked the timing out for that, which happened to be this week. So they raised the pole. The barges are going to go in. They're going to do the borings in the low water areas, and then get out before the pole goes back down.
Yeah, they're right up against the shore right now. I was wondering how they got in there.
Yes.
And it's funny because the former Bonneville director asked me if we had been able to make the contact that you requested, and
we did. And
I will let her know.
Funny was the person that we talked to ended up being the friends of somebody that actually works on the Kiewit Shannon and Wilson team. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just talked to so and so, and he was like, who? And I'm like, he's like, oh great, I know her. I'm going to give her a call. So we were able to work that out. They were really great to work with us. Gave us the time frames, walked us through what their flexibilities are, and we were able to leverage that and get those borings quicker. So that was good for everybody.
You can see right down into it now. You can see what they're having for lunch.
We will, yes. Exactly what's over there now. And Dave will be able to tell us exactly what they're going to do. So maybe not quite exact as that, but you know.
We know that we know what the water depth is and the sediment depth is right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get some more information as we go.
But it was important to get over there and get that information. So that was very helpful to the project that they were willing to work with us like that. So it was great. At the end of this month, we will be doing an over-the-shoulder review of the 30% plans. So kind of checking physical percent complete and seeing how the plans are progressing towards a 60% deliverable this summer. So July, August timeframe, we'll do a 60% deliverable. So this is kind of the halfway checkpoint. It'll be more over the shoulder reviewing, kind of a quick review just as a spot check to see what progress is being made. So, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. Do we have anybody on for legal?
Yeah, I see Mark's there.
Mark's on.
There we go.
Yes, Mark Reno's on. Let's see. It has been very calm for the last month, not much. I know I said, and I promised that we would reduce this to a report in writing to you. We're still working internally on how that looks, because it will be our first report, before it was our co-counsel's responsibility. So my apologies. I had fully expected that we would be able to deliver that report to you, to your confidential in mailbox. But there really is, it really has been calm for the last month or so. We have some contracts and some agreements that we've been working on, but no major litigation or other legal initiatives that we've been working on.
Now, were you able to communicate with Tae about his issue? Has that been resolved?
Yeah, we're still working through that agreement. It's I have some questions internally here about where the conflict of interest policies come from, but there are some substantive differences between Washington and Oregon, and so we're going to have to work through exactly how that applies. It's particularly in the area of dual representation on boards, which Oregon has taken a different position from Washington. So I think what we're going to recommend is that that each state apply its own standards to its own officials. So, for example, a Washington commissioner would unlikely be able to represent a an entity that is actually doing business with the bridge authority, whereas in Oregon that has been expressly authorized by the state legislature and would unlikely be an issue. So it's one of the very first issues, other than taxation, that we've had to deal with, where the joint state nature of the agency is creating an issue that we haven't really had to deal with in large part.
Mark, would it be acceptable if we choose the more stringent requirements?
I don't know. I mean, that's really an option for the board to deal with, because they would then be kind of giving up some of the protection that Oregon has, for example, for port commissioners to sit on the bridge authority. So, I mean, obviously, if you always go with the most conservative choice, then that is an option that doesn't require a lot of then you never have to worry about it or think about it. But it does give up a an opportunity that the Oregon State Legislature has made available to folks on that side of the river.
Yeah.
So that's really a policy decision, and we'll have to raise that and have some discussion about it. That's why it's a little bit delicate.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Okay.
So if it does if we want to bring it forward, the governance committee will bring it to you guys.
Okay.
So we'll bring it to the meeting, but we have not done so yet.
Okay, and this is relative to negotiating real estate is where it came
No,
up,
no, it's specifically, we need to have a conflict of interest policy for, I don't even remember why we had to have it, but some federal requirement of having this policy stated, and Tahi was trying to work out make sure we had all the details worked out and flushed out this issue, which is now, I want to make sure they were making forward progress on it, because it was stuck for a little while.
Yeah, we had carved out for FHWA's concerns any involvement of the port in our acquisition of property for them, because they said we really don't care what the state of Oregon says. Whether or not the state of Oregon blesses a port commissioner being on the Bridge Authority Commission, we're frowning on that, and so we had brought in ODOT to negotiate on behalf, and kind of sidestep the issue in that regard. But still, we still do need to adopt a policy, and I'm sorry, it has just been really, really kind of tricky to work through every single one of these issues.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Catherine, did you have a question? I saw your hand up.
Was just asking for clarification that currently we don't have any port commissioners who are voting bridge authority members. So that's fine. But in the future, that may cause concern. Is that, unless we have a policy, is that correct? Over.
Well, and I mean, it may go beyond port commissioners. It may go beyond, it might be, when the county is involved in terms of permitting and all of those matters. If you have a county commissioner that has jurisdiction over some type of unincorporated property and is also serving on the bridge authority, then does that lead to a problem? And, we just need to know, it's more of a global issue. I think that for purposes of the acquisition of property from the port, that we have worked out a regime by having ODOT involved that has satisfied FHWA, but it's kind of a global matter when we're talking about these dual representations.
So, Mark, I want to remind you, and actually to the clerk to the board, that we do have a separate subset conflict of interest regarding the right of way and then land acquisition. So I think we have to broaden the review if there's any conflict between two policies or even combine them. So
Right.
I think we need to have
that's what I said. We worked out a separate regime for real property acquisition for rights of way, and so that was satisfactory. And that may be what we need. We may need to, we may want to be, more global and more liberal in terms of allowing, but also create the opportunity for ad hoc, decisions that on specific transactions, an exception would be made and somebody might not be, or we'd bring in a third party, or somebody might be disallowed from serving in a particular capacity or have to recuse themselves.
So maybe Mark, if I just kind of summarize, I think what I'm hearing is there's an identified issue, you're doing research on it, and then we'll probably get some sort of recommendation back to the authority about all the rhyme, reason, and options for going forward.
Correct. We'll take it to the governance. We'll flush it through the governance committee first, so that when it comes to the board, that it will have been fully and thoroughly discussed with a recommendation.
Thank you.
So I just want to know one last thing, that we do have a conflict of interest policy. We're just revising it. So conflict of interest is a requirement by FHWA per 23 CFR. So we do have it.
Right.
So don't be alarmed that we don't have anything.
Right. There was a question raised by a commissioner as to some revisions that were made in Oregon law, expanding the kind of universe of people who are encompassed in a conflict of interest policy to include household members. I don't think that that's what's driving this. I think it's just, having been engaged in the business of the bridge authority over the last couple of years, we're realizing that the potential for conflicts of interest among the 6 members, among the bridge authority, among the state institutions is kind of a bigger bite to chew off than we had first thought.
Okay. Mark, thank you, and we'll look forward to a little more detailed debrief when you get your head around the whole issue. So thank you.
We'll let you know.
Government relations. Jake, are you going to start, or Jim?
I'm going to let the smarter man, Jim Kolb, go.
Oh boy. Well, thanks,
You
Jake.
didn't move fast enough, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing here is continuing to track any progress with the BIP grants. We haven't seen anything necessarily yet. We continue to try to explore ways to demonstrate that we've got strong support. That included Commissioner Anderson having a positive conversation with Representative Newhouse to see if he'd call his former colleague, Secretary Duffy, to walk him through the bridge and his support for the bridge and advocate for providing funding. Also working with Commissioner Berger as well as Dan Meyer to try to build some support with some of the companies and businesses in the region. In particular, had conversations with Airbus as well as in situ. Sorry, I'll get that out. And see if they would be amenable to calling DOT and explaining the importance of the bridge to their operations in the region and nationally. Positive conversations. We'll see where they go. We're hopeful, they make a call, or, we're looking at other ideas potentially to get them to weigh in and on behalf of our applications. And then lastly, just starting to think through timing for a DC trip here in the spring. Obviously, we haven't been to DC since the ROD has been signed. We know there's been some movement with the BIP package to the Office of Secretary. So, a lot of things to talk about with folks in DC. So we're looking at what our options are to come to DC for another trip.
So a question, Jim. I was just in an Association of Oregon Counties meeting where they were talking about communications with a new White House Office of Governmental Relations, which I thought they already had one, but they're describing this as a new entity. So maybe they've reworked it. Is there any reason not to sort of pass along a message that it would be really kind of nice if infrastructure projects were moved along?
Yeah, well, last time we were in DC, we did meet with the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, and we had, good dialogue. We've continued to communicate with that office. I'm not familiar with this office. If you have any details, if there's something different than Intergovernmental Affairs, or if they've set up, maybe they've got something else that they're doing on the outside. What's that?
We have a specific county liaison named Jeremy for all counties in the country. Any reason should I check with you before passing along any communications?
Yeah, well, if you could just share, I don't see any reason you can't communicate with them necessarily, but if you could share, we could just confirm kind of, what office he's in, what role they have. Like I said, we met with the Pacific Northwest director for the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. There's always a lot of churn, and there has been a lot of churn in any political administration. So that's not to say there isn't somebody else, and then we should obviously take any advantage we can to contact someone on behalf of this project.
Will do.
Okay. I see Brad.
Yep. Hi, guys. By way of quick update, we're in the final week of legislative session. We're waiting on the final transportation budgets to come out. We're not hearing any concerns. We just want to make sure and clarify that there aren't any surprises within. There was some conflict between the House and Senate budgets around some bonding and how much to bond. And I think that anytime there's differences in, total resource available, we get concerned. But at this point, I think we're okay, but we'll know probably by Wednesday on that. But we're not hearing any major concerns coming from anyone, including Senator King at this point, which we've been regularly checking in with. So happy to answer any questions, but right now it appears to be pretty quiet.
Any other questions for Brad? I'm looking for one more here and I'm not seeing it.
Dan Bates down.
There we go.
There he is.
Hi, everyone. Unlike Brad, we actually finished on Friday, so our session is officially over at this point, and nothing of specific interest to the port, to the bridge authority. The issues, as you know, that we were following were mostly related to the budget, and making sure that and understanding any impacts on ODOT. The two issues that are just worth noting today, and we'll send the authority a full report in the coming days. But the legislature did move in a controversial move. They did move the ballot referral of the transportation package that passed in the short session last year to the May primary ballot. And so voters will have a choice on whether to reject those increases. Last time, as you'll recall, our funding is associated with lottery dollars and not with transportation dollars. If that were to fail, there would be a significant impact on the transportation budgets, both for ODOT and local governments. And to account for the possibility of that failing, the legislature, in rebalancing the budget this time around, did move significant funding around in the ODOT budget to make sure that they prioritized operations and maintenance. And essentially, they moved around $220 million from Connect Oregon, from a multimodal active transportation and safe routes to school programs, as well as a Highway 58 project that had been authorized and appropriated funds. And so they moved funding around within ODOT ostensibly to avoid layoffs that had been predicted if the measure were not to pass or to fail. So that's the state of play on what came out of the legislature. The governor has indicated that she wants to convene a robust stakeholder table all around coming back with a transportation finance plan for the coming sessions. So we'll obviously continue to monitor that. And then as we move into the interim, we will be focused on finding a pathway on the liability issues associated with the designation as a special district in the Oregon Tort Claims Act. So we'll continue working on that. But at this point, the gavel is down. That's the big theme. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's where we landed.
And Arthur.
Yeah, Dan, what are you hearing about the likelihood of success of the legal challenge against the changing of the date of the ODOT referendum?
I'm not hearing a whole lot of confidence that that challenge would be successful. I mean, I think there are some unique questions of law there, but the legislature and the budget writers are certainly operating as if that will proceed as is the case. But I also haven't seen definitive statements from those folks, but that's the general take I'm hearing.
That's what I was asking. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Did you have anything to add? Okay, great. Partner updates. We already talked with Tom Goldstein. Okay, there's any other comments? WashDOT, ODOT? Okay, we'll just keep moving on. Consent agenda. We have invoices that are in the packet. Okay. Am I reading the right piece of paper?
You are.
Okay, just check. So we have a number of regular invoices in there.
I'll report out your approval that the Kiewit invoice was reviewed by the E&C committee and confirmed that we think it should be paid.
No exception. Anybody else want to talk about anything on those, or I would entertain a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I have something if it's, sorry.
Funding and finance is reviewed and agreed.
Yeah, I was waiting in case Ben, since he's chairing, but yes, yeah, funding and finance did review.
Catherine?
Yes, I just wanted to say we actually, after a brief meeting 2 Mondays ago, or last Monday, we did ask the HRWSBA staff to confirm that all invoices have been paid up to date for both contractors and subs, because there was a discussion about us not having paid invoices. So we did a deep dive, and Engineering Construction Committee reviewed the invoice, and I just wanted to add that context to the group, because if there's any subs listening out there, we definitely want to ensure everyone is paid on time, et cetera. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion. Did we get a second?
We did, yes.
And we have a second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. That was a long consent agenda. On to committee reports. Ben, I think you're up first.
Let's see. Trying to get this video to work. There we go. Hey, everybody. So we had 2 funding and finance subcommittee meetings since last reported. So we had spent quite a bit of time discussing the financial report from January and changes that and guidance and feedback back to the HNTP staff for updates and improvements that we'd advised regarding how that report could tailor to show better demonstrate and be kind of a monthly status for kind of all of the metrics and financial reporting and progress and statuses that we're hoping to see. That included quite a bit of feedback on KPIs and key performance indicators. So we're expecting to see some updates in the February report and probably some additional updates in March and possibly months after that, as we kind of work through a couple cycles with that team and dial in some of the changes. But overall, we're very happy with the reporting structure, and I think it's a lot of great visibility into different aspects of the project that we could see in a comprehensive report. We also talked about a number of other topics. One thing we're going to add in as well over the next couple of months, or next couple of, we need to establish a time frame for it, but we want to do a better job of modeling cash flows so that we can look into the future and really be able to definitively answer questions about how much of the reserve fund we're going to need to use for ongoing operational needs. The belief is at this point that we should be plenty adequate through the design phase as far as from a cash flow perspective, but we want to also be able to provide visibility on how much of the revenues or how much of the reserve are we going to need in order to fund the regular cycle, and then be able to model if we're able to get the advance payment term in, how does that affect our cash needs, and then be able to plan for phase 2 when our working capital needs are going to increase significantly. And then we talked about the audit report, which we'll get into more detail. I saw there's a bullet on that later, so I won't dive too much into that. The tax advisory contract that Tehi's been working on, the budget. We have we started working on, or I guess Debbie and started working on the getting the budget committee together for this year. And I think that's it. Any questions, or did I miss anything, Grant or Mark?
One thing just to expand a little bit on the cash flow forecasting. We have all the data. It exists. It's perhaps not presented in as much of a user-friendly way as we would like. And so taking that data that already exists in the PCE, for example, and presenting it in a way that we as financial people who look at it know exactly where to find it and exactly how the equations in the cells, it's Excel based, talk to each other, and presenting it in a way to the rest of the authority and the public in a digestible way, so that information is more understandable for the layperson, for example, is what we're aiming at with that sort of communication.
And this sounds like something that as construction starts, it's going to become more important.
More and more
time to figure the problems out.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, Mike.
Just one more, Carrie. I don't know if you're available. We did get some word of some new NOFOs potentially coming out. Notice of funding opportunities. So Carrie, I don't know if you want to just speak to that real quick on.
Who's that at Carrie's desk?
Yes. So Mr. High, would you like to please expand on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up Mike right now, the list of those. We got notification that there has been some direction to put out notice of funding opportunities on a number of grant programs that most of them are IIJA programs that need to be awarded before 2026, before the end of this federal fiscal year, before October 1. Now, many of these, I truly don't know how useful these are going to be to us. We have to see which grant programs are included in those NOFOs. What we're hearing is that there may be as many as 20, totaling many billions of dollars. Many of them are Federal Rail Administration grant programs. A few of them are related to natural gas transport. There may be some nexus there. I'm not exactly sure. There are a couple that might be of interest to us. And one of them is a program called Protect, which is a resiliency against natural disasters program. And that program actually seems to fit pretty well. There is no statutory limitation on the amount that the grants can be. The largest grant awarded to date under that program is $60 million. So well short of the amount of money that we truly need, unless we get some significant funding also from BIP. The other program that kind of is right in our wheelhouse is Safe Streets for All. Those grants will be coming out in this round of NOFOs to finish up the 2026 program. And again, those grants are capped at $25 million for implementation. So again, none of these are real needle movers in terms of the amount of funding that we actually need. We're still pinning our hopes mostly on the BIP applications that we have pending. But, in the event that, and that's why it would be nice if these things went in a reasonable sequence. If BIP were awarded, but it weren't all we were asking for, and it got us close, there is a chance that one of these grants might be able to bridge that gap. We'll be just keeping a close eye on that, and when it happens, we'll certainly evaluate those and bring you a more thorough evaluation of whether we would recommend that we pursue applying for any of these grants.
Something else that might happen is some of the local agencies might end up applying for some of these different grants. So we may end up getting asked for letters of support because they may build on the race grant work that was done. So just something else to keep aware of, that, you know, you may see requests for letters of support for some of this stuff.
So given this emphasis on rail, or the fact there are a bunch of rail things, is there anything in there that the railroad could apply for to help with the issue of us crossing the railroad?
We haven't dug into them yet. I don't think all of them have even actually came out. This was just a heads up that they were coming. So once they come out and we see the details of them, that's what we'll be looking for, is those types of things where maybe we partner with somebody else, or, you know, another agency asks for something that supports the project that makes it more viable. So
even like the BNSF crossing for the White Salmon City Park access.
Yeah.
This would be, it might fit in here.
Yeah, so it's awareness as much for this project as it is other other local agencies to be aware of how it might support this project. So if we get a lot of other local grants, to build a lot of the infrastructure off the bridge, it only goes to supporting building the bridge.
And that starts to,
if we start to ripple that out.
But if you get other grants going around after, that kind of emphasizes the need for the main one that kind of makes it work.
Exactly.
So
I was talking about this in the ENC piece, but I think it fits here. You know, the architectural committee is looking at maybe two ends of the bridge and a beautification kind of a program for both ends. We find something here that would help fund that.
But
and even if it's 25 million, that's 25 million less than we have to.
Safe streets seems like a perfect thing to deal with pedestrian, bicycle, and multimodal access onto and off the bridge safely, particularly on the Washington side where you're dumping out right on a state highway. That just, I've heard a pedestrian bridge mentioned twice now in the last week.
So. The Oregon side, you have to cross and twist and stuff.
Yeah. So
that actually has been part of our strategy. So the part of the objective of the work that we're currently doing under our $3.9 million raise grant was to develop an action plan, which is a prerequisite to qualifying for a Safe Streets implementation grant. And so, the next step is going to be to read that NOFO very carefully, make sure that what we have developed so far in our raise work, which is coming to a close, will meet all the qualifications as an action plan. And that would put us in pretty good shape to apply for an implementation grant on the Safe Streets. But us, or potentially another local agency. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Bridge Authority that qualifies for that.
Carrie, has anybody told you about the incident in 2021 where Hood River was without gas over Christmas for, I can't remember, I think it was easily over a week. It might have been more like 2 or 3 when somebody crashed into the service pipeline. But I think there's potentially it might be worth looking into if there was an issue with the bridge due to seismic. Would that put Hood River's gas infrastructure at risk?
It would cut it off.
Yeah, what is interesting there is that maybe is qualification in a couple of areas. One is the PROTECT, which is the resiliency grants, but also the PHMSA, and I don't know what all those letters stand for. There are going to be 11 NOFOs published under that program. I do know that the first word in P in PHMSA is pipeline. And so it deals with natural gas distribution pipelines. And the other thing I'm not sure of is whether the authority would be a reasonable recipient of that, or whether it would be the gas distribution utility. Those are things that we'll have to learn about as we go through that. But there is a nexus there because of the gas pipeline on the bridge for sure. And the other thing is potentially a nexus for the CRSI and RCE grants that are they're Federal Railroad Administration grants. Again, I'm not sure that the Bridge Authority would be an eligible recipient for those, it would more likely be the railroad operator. But if it could further this project, and it might be money that we wouldn't have to spend if they were able to get the money and spend it.
So it's Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration.
There you go.
We're actually building a support for a pipeline coming across the river.
Right.
Sure sounds
multimodal.
Multimodal support, yeah.
And one that has a demonstrated failure point.
Yeah. We'll look forward to reading the NOFOs when they come out.
Yeah, we'll see.
And Ben, what was the date of that? I want to research that a little bit and maybe
Christmas of 21. It was cold.
I sent you
2020.
I sent you a link, Carrie.
Well, excellent. Thank you.
Car went across the bridge and went into
December 20th through the 27th.
Yeah, a car ran right through into the substation.
It was the largest outage in the history of gas distribution in the Pacific Northwest.
2020.
That was cool.
That's pretty compelling.
All right, Carrie, we'll look forward to a little bit more information when you've had a chance to kind of sort through it.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Engineering construction, Mr.
Yeah, so we've talked about some of this already, so I'll slip through it pretty quick. As we mentioned, we looked at the invoice and we're fine with it. As Catherine said, we checked on all the invoices paid to date and we are up to date. Nobody's being held up by us. We got a good permitting update from Christie. We got an architectural update, probably a couple of different areas. One, the piers, looking at potentially changing it from just a round circular pier to something that's maybe hexagonal or
a little more articulated.
Something different. When we looked at that, the one concern that we brought up that needs to be addressed is making sure that if it's not round, how do we make sure that we get good penetration of concrete around the rebar to the outside, that you don't have rock voids and so on once you pull the forms off? If they're
I think what we know from the current bridges doesn't matter.
Well, hopefully we have a little higher grade concrete.
I was going to say that was what you said. It's like the rest of us said.
I'm just looking at the pictures of that concrete, and their aggregate is the size of baby heads, and their blades are all over the place. There's no rebar
joints in the industry. They're not good. We'll talk a little bit about the ends, and I talked briefly before about kind of it's not really a park, but it's almost a park type setting. That's where I'm thinking maybe we can get some extra funds for that, or at least we ought to be thinking about sequencing that as a 2B or another phase of the project. So if we can get some additional funding, we put it towards that and protect the funding for the structure itself.
These are the stormwater features.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Well,
architectural
stormwater typically on one side of the bridge, and then on the other side of the bridge, there's some sort of kind of park-like thing that gives pedestrians, bikes, and access, and you get that kind of interchange for people to get on the bridge and off the bridge versus just following traffic.
I thought the stormwater had to go to both ends. Is it pumped up and over?
No, it goes to both ends.
Oh, okay.
So there's one on each side.
Oh, okay. There is one. Okay.
Yeah.
That goes on the east side of the bridge, and then on the west side, we're treating that more pedestrian.
So each side has one of each.
Yeah, and they start to have a function. So you're kind of zoned with all the necessary bridge stuff on the east side of the bridge, and the west side of the bridge is more pedestrian and people oriented. Is kind of what's emerging. So
we also talked a little bit about the TFAS screening approach that the team came up with, and it looks really good. I don't know if you've shown the.
I don't think that's been widely circulated.
That's Trouble Fishing Access Site.
Yes, right. And then let's see. Lastly, the guardrail or the handrails, kind of guardrails on the rest of the bridge. There was a little discussion about that. That's still kind of being worked on.
And the Belvederes.
Yes.
Wait, what's the Belvedere?
The viewpoints.
Oh, okay. I never heard that. Is that a common architectural term?
I heard it here. I didn't know it before I started here. So.
Then we talked a little bit about 6F. There's going to be another discussion on 6F later in the reports. We'll hold off on comment there. We got a briefing on the bridge monitoring system that's going to be coming up here as well later in this meeting, so we'll hold off on that. We had a good briefing from Kiewit on the Washington Shore access and how they want to be able to build the bridge on that side on the Washington landing. We talked about a couple of access options to that we'll show later on as well. That was it. Anything else, Catherine?
Nope, I think you covered everything. Thank you.
Eric?
All right. I think that's a good summary. Arthur.
Okay, yeah. So I borrowed Kelly's office for a phone call. Sorry about that, Kelly. But Kelly has only pink paper and red pens. So, so my notes are really, really hard to read here. But
So sorry about that. I never use pens or paper.
The two major issues that we talked about that are relevant to the conflict of interest, which we already talked about, and the 6F stuff, which we're going to talk about. So I think I'll just wait until that comes up in the agenda.
All right. Thank you, Arthur. Jake, I think I saw you up there online.
Yeah. So just to recap on the communications, thank you for listening to Dan explain our website redesign project. Appreciate the feedback. We had a communications meeting last week where we talked about some of the information that was provided to us from you guys and talked a little bit more about scheduling and when we think we'll have the website ready to go. Additionally, I had a meeting with HNTV staff to talk about their how they present information internally, specifically GIS information. That went really well. They are on the right path, so that is good. As mentioned earlier in this meeting, communication group talked about the potential future trip to DC to meet with some representatives and what that trip would look like. And so we are working on communication around that potential trip going forward. I think those are the big talking points. But if you have any addition things I left out, please let the group know.
I think you covered it. One quick addition to that, we usually have the messaging bullets at some point too. So just to cover, we are continuing to track the aesthetics work, and as deeper levels of aesthetic details emerge, we'll be communicating that through the website and through our social media channels, as well as getting some new concept renderings printed out that show those new details. So we should be seeing more there in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I would also add, if we could, Eric had an interview with local news. I don't know when they're going to publish it.
We haven't seen it yet.
I think it's going to be more.
It's coming.
Also, last Monday night, James, Mike, and myself supported the project in a meeting with 125, 150 WashDOT project engineers up at Skamania. And we gave them a half-hour presentation discussion on progressive design build contracts. But we also took the opportunity to tell them about our little project here. And I think the feedback that you got was pretty good. He had an insight. His wife was there. She works for Washout, so.
Yeah, no, they said it was very good. One of the first times they've actually had outside people come in and do the presentation. So I thought it was very informative, and was surprised at how many of them were actually watching our project and interested in what's going on. So.
All right.
So, a related subject, I had an interesting experience where I was visiting at the Hood River Care Center, and one of the social workers there comes up to me and says, "So I saw you on YouTube talking about the bridge," and I was sort of scratching my head about what he was saying. Yeah. So, how often do you do these? Do you do these open houses where you answer people's questions? And what I figured out he was talking about is, I think. He had seen on Facebook or someplace, probably Tracy's, some clips that Tracy had prepared where there were questions being answered. And what it made me wonder about is, do we have a pathway for people to submit questions other than, coming when we have a meeting? Because he thought that was a kind of a rare thing. I said, no, we meet twice a month. Anytime you have questions, just send them along. But do we have a channel now to funnel questions so that people who happen to see something like that would be able to send along a question, get some better information more directly from us in one of these meetings?
We do on the website. I don't know, Amy or Kelly, if you want to.
So at HRWSBA.gov. Info, yeah.
So that we get them through the info email. So
and have we gotten questions that way?
Yeah,
we get a trickle of questions coming in.
A fair amount through there.
Great.
Yeah.
Of different things, especially right after the board meetings. We'll typically get some clarifying questions or.
So it would be good to kind of review those as part of the board meeting to know what people are asking about. If there's any trend or anything that's worth us knowing about.
Sure.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll start doing that.
Didn't even know it was on YouTube.
One other thing just kind of goes along with communications is HNTB went up to the Columbia River Gorge Community College last week and put up some flyers. We're looking to hire an intern locally. So Tehi, I don't know if you've got anything else you want to say there?
Yeah, we haven't met some people at the campus, student service people, and then we actually had another contact in the Hood River campus. We went to the Dalles main campus, and it's been only 6 days, so we're expecting some traction soon. We did have some applicants outside of the area. They just applied, but they are not eligible since we are hiring local interns. So we'll hear more hopefully soon.
When you say local, what can you define that? Are you picking up Klickitat County as well as Red River County, and what else?
That's mainly the area. They will have to commute. It's going to be in-person interns, so we are not recruiting anybody driving.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We're down to, we didn't have any unfinished business from last meeting, so we're down to new business. And audit findings. Are you going to start us off on that, Debbie?
I am. And I apologize because I was off on Friday and then I'm at a conference. And so I had not reviewed our agenda ahead of time. We do have a separate line down under presentations. And so I don't know if you want to move that or if you want me just to talk about the findings. Tara Camp from Clear Trail CPAs is also, that's our audit firm. She's also online to do the audit presentation, but they kind of go together. She has some required communication that she will provide to you. So it can be separate or it can be together. But I can start off here. And I've already presented to the Funding and Finance Committee and to the Governance Committee. I have to keep going over the things that we did wrong. We have already corrected the two material weaknesses, but I get to keep telling everybody about them. And so out of the audit, for the financial statement, so there was a financial statement audit and then also a single audit, and a single audit is our federal grants. And so for the financial statement audit, there was a significant deficiency that they reported because we use QuickBooks, and QuickBooks does not have good internal controls in the software itself. And so they reported a significant deficiency. And they do that, by the way, for anyone that uses QuickBooks. So this is not just the Bridge Authority. This is everyone that uses QuickBooks that they audit. They report a significant deficiency. And so basically a significant deficiency is something where if it continued, it could turn into a material weakness, which is more severe. Which means that it could lead to a material misstatement on the financial statements. Now, we believe that there are sufficient compensating controls in place to make sure that that does not happen. We do timely bank reconciliations. We do a lot of reporting. We report back to you. We have started printing reports out of QuickBooks to give to the Funding and Finance Committee, and so we're taking a lot of steps to make sure that the information is correct and that it stays correct and does not get changed. So at this point, we are not recommending changing from QuickBooks, although we will continue to evaluate other options. A lot of other options are a lot more expensive. And we have so few transactions that I'm not sure it makes sense to change at this point. Ben Berger did have a suggestion for looking at another software package, and so we'll continue to look at things. And if we find something that's not really expensive, then we would come back and suggest perhaps changing.
Let me interrupt you for just a minute. On that particular point, I think we got to be looking at a year to 2 years down the road, because when we're in construction, what we're spending on a month here now is peanuts compared to what we're going to be spending there. And I'm just concerned that could we get ourselves into some hot water, and we're talking big money now.
Yeah, and that's
I think Debbie, it's important to explain what the QuickBook does.
Right. So QuickBooks is basically where we pay invoices out of QuickBooks. That's the primary purpose of QuickBooks, is that we pay our invoices out of that. We do track the cash in the bank accounts through that. Hence, as I was saying, we do the bank reconciliations through QuickBooks and things like that. But it's and it really comes back to primarily to the number of transactions that are running through. And so we don't expect a significantly larger number of transactions running through the system, even though it will be larger dollar amounts. But again, we're going to continue to look at that, and we'll certainly be bringing things back to the Bridge Authority when we talk about that. And if it's serious enough, then yes, you'll have to spend the money, and we'll just have to go down that path. But at this point, I don't believe that we need to make a change. But we'll definitely continue to monitor that. And to get the auditor's input into it as well, because we do have to continue to have clean reports, and especially for the federal grants. So for the single audit, it's very important. And then the other two things we had were what they refer to as material weaknesses. And so the first one, they both have to do with timing. The first one had to do with when the additional toll revenue is turned over to the Bridge Authority. I was reporting it as revenue when I turned it over. And so in other words, when I do, in fact, I'm working right now on the March turnover, but that's through February 28th. And so the revenue is actually earned on behalf of the Bridge Authority on February 28th. The way I was doing it in the past, I would have reported the revenue in March when I turned over the cash. But that was a finding, of course. And so now what I'm doing, I have changed all my templates and everything so that on the last day of the month, once I'm done calculating, I record the revenue as of the last day of the month, and then it shows up as receivable. And then when I actually turn the cash over, I reduce the receivable and show that the cash has actually been turned over. So that I've already corrected that material weakness on a monthly basis. And then the other one that happened was there was an accounts payable invoice that was for the services were provided in June, but the invoice got recorded in August. And so that was wrong. We had myself and my assistant who reviews all the invoices before they're paid had spent a lot of time making sure that the dollar amounts were right and that the approvals were all there and double checking everything like that. We were not paying as much attention to the dates. And so we now have on our checklist, we now have added that date is very important to make sure that we're getting things in the correct month. So that also has been corrected now. But because there were findings in Oregon, those are reported to the Secretary of State's office, they manage the audits division, which is who we report to. And so, because there were findings, we have to have an official action by the board saying that you're aware of those and that they have been corrected. Or in the case of the significant deficiency, you're aware of it, and we're not correcting it at this time, but Tara from the CPA firm from Clear Trails did assure me that they're used to seeing this for QuickBooks, so they are aware of the QuickBooks significant deficiency and the fact that there are other places that are also not changing software just because it was QuickBooks. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And then if you want, as I said, Tara is online now and could move up that presentation if you would want to just get all of the audit stuff out of the way at once, or you can just go ahead and move through everything and do the audit presentation when it's on the agenda.
Debbie, we'd love to go ahead and just keep moving through that. And I'm sure Tara has other things that she can occupy her afternoon with too. So if we can do that, let's go through that right now.
Okay, so Tara, hopefully you're still on. I know she was.
Yeah.
Hi, there she is. Okay, I'll turn it over to you to go through your required communications and answer questions.
All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Tara Camp, and I am a partner with Clear Trail CPAs, and we are the financial statement auditors for the Bridge Authority. And so what I wanted to do today was go over the purpose of our audit and then the results of our audit, and also communicate a few more things we're required to communicate with you. So our audit for the authority is threefold. We perform the financial statement audit, and that is where we test and assess the financial statements prepared by management in order to express an opinion on them to determine if they're fairly stated. Secondly, we perform the Oregon Municipal Audit Law, otherwise known as Oregon Minimum Standards, and that is where we look at various laws and regulations and ORSs to ensure compliance with those. And then lastly, we perform the federal single audit, and that is another compliance audit where we really dive into the compliance requirements of those federal dollars to ensure that those boxes are being checked and they're being used and documented appropriately. So overall, the results of the audit for the Alliance are very good. For the financial statement audit, we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's a clean opinion, the very best result you could get for a financial statement audit and exactly what you're going for. For state minimum standards compliance audit, we found no items requiring comment. For the federal award single audit, we found no issues of non-compliance and no question costs. And for our management letter, we did note one significant deficiency and two material weaknesses, as Debbie provided the overview of those to you already. Next, we're required to communicate with you if we had any disagreements or difficulties in our audit. We had no disagreements with management. Debbie's always wonderful to work with and very knowledgeable. We did have some difficulties just in performing and executing the audit because of delays in information. It's such a busy time and we understand a lot of things come up. So there were a few delays of information to us, but thankfully we got everything done and issued and submitted to the state. And then lastly, we always like to alert you of some new accounting standards that are coming out that are effective during the current year. GASB 103, which changes the financial reporting model, and GASB 104, which modifies slightly the disclosures of capital assets. These are important because, again, they create more work for the future financial statements, and it's good to be aware of those, and we'll work with oh, sorry, my computer just froze. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. Sorry. We'll work with the authority to make sure that those are properly implemented. Other than that, that is everything I wanted to cover with you, but I'm happy to answer any questions about the audit process or the results or any other questions you may have.
Thank you, Tara. Does anybody have any other questions?
I guess just one. I'm kind of viewing this as like a test run for when we actually have money. I mean, we have money, but when we have much greater level of activity, is that a fair way to view this?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It was the very first year for an audit. There's usually a lot more work that goes into it for a first year for our side and the Bridge Authority side. So it's definitely definitely a good test run for future for sure.
Thanks.
I think that gets us through our action items.
You actually have it. Yeah, you actually have an action item. So yeah, you'll need to pass that resolution, please, or not. I mean, that's up to you, but you need to address the resolution.
Yeah, I just want to recognize Debbie and the work that she's done from the inception of this project. And to come out with a first audit like this, as clean as it is, she's doing a good job. And thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Unmodified opinion and a clean federal single audit. Good job. Thank you.
I'm going to go back to Catherine's comment, squeaky clean. Thank you. So that brings us to the resolution, which is, I think we're based, 26-2, but we're just acknowledging that we've heard the.
I got you. I move to approve resolution number 2026-02.
I would like to second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Carries. And I guess we just didn't do any discussion on that one, but I think we got
it would if anyone had any issues, they would have already yelled out.
We had time to ask questions and we got that covered.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Forgot where I am here. So we're on
information.
Yeah.
Anything on key messages for the next few months? All right, bridge monitoring. I guess I'll do one and jump in. We do have a training coming up.
I was going to use that.
I took the easy one. So we're getting to the soft stage where we're transitioning over to actually being able to see the data, getting all the back. I think it was easier to put all the physical stuff out than it was to actually get all the electronic software stuff together.
Ask West. He climbed up to the top of the tower.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
So we're making some progress there, and we'll have those trainings, and then it's kind of a train the trainer thing. We'll get a small group trained, and then we'll migrate that training out there. Anything on the physical side?
No, nothing on the physical side yet. I know that the Frontier folks have a meeting scheduled for this week, so we'll see how that goes.
So I've got a point maybe, and that's, I see Kevin still on the phone. I would encourage you guys to get Kevin the port and HDR together with you and figure out, once we start seeing data.
Yeah.
So what? You know, what's the impact on the bridge and who's gonna make that call? And I would think, Kevin, you want HDR involved in that, because they're probably the most knowledgeable as far as the structure itself. And I think the earlier we get that going, if we do a test pile program and we see some movement, we're gonna need to know, is that good? Is that bad? Is it acceptable?
Be nice to know what are the trigger points when we need to worry about doing something else.
Yeah, a couple things related to that is the railroad, as they've done their bridge replacements. As you know, most of their bridges are right next to either the existing structure and or a structure on SR 14. So they've done a lot of monitoring up and down their system replacement. So we've been talking to our construction manager that's down there about how they've been doing that. And sounds like kind of high level what they do is they set up all the instrumentation, create a baseline for the project and see what the natural movements of the structures are. And then they put some parameters around those natural movements to basically say, hey, if it moves more than this, then it sets off an alarm, and those alarms mean different things. We'll review some of that, and then, like Mike said, get with HDR and the port on kind of how to handle the existing structure. And then if we do a test pile program, that'll be a part of it as well. But I think the most important thing right now is to get a baseline, because nobody really knows how much that bridge moves today. So I think we need to know how much it moves under load, but also how temperature makes a difference, because our project is going to be so long.
Temperature, wind,
temperature, loadings, and see what our baseline movements are so that we can kind of then set up some of those parameters, and those may adjust as time goes on, but we'll move that forward.
So when do you expect we're going to have a policy decision to be made by this board concerning how to treat this data, how much to share?
I mean, I think you need 3 to 6 months of data, and then let's see what that is telling us.
I guess I'm asking something different. There's a dashboard which is going to be producing information, and there's a question of whether we share. I mean, my general view is, unless there's a specific reason not to share, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that people probably wouldn't have a clue what to do with, but that doesn't mean that
we'll know
make it accessible
once we get through this training of what it'll take to share it. Okay. And then how it can be made public. And then once we understand what that takes,
then we can bring
it back. I would say in the next month, 2 months, we can come back with some ideas of here's what we're collecting. Here's what it looks like on a dashboard.
I'm not rushing you. I just want to make sure that there is a distinct point at which there is a decision made, rather than us sort of just, floating along with it and then saying, oh my God, we should have done something about it because now we have an actual issue.
Let me make a suggestion too. I think we need, when we roll that out, we need some education as well from us and the board out to the public that all bridges move. Our bridge definitely moves. During the summertime, it grows. And we've got proof. Look at the bearings and whatnot. You can actually, they know it moves. We need to educate the public before we just throw something out there that, this is within a parameter that.
Part of actually what they're replacing, that expansion joint they were talking about, is to accommodate for that movement. So that one of the things that the port's getting ready to replace right now happens to do with that movement.
This is why we need a policy. Yeah. Right. I'm not saying what the policy should be. I'm asking when we're going to have a formal discussion of all the recommendations that you guys have concerning this issue, so that we can simply state a policy.
Yes, I would say in the next couple months we'll
I'm going to challenge that. So if we need 3 months worth of data, that's June, and we probably need, I would think, at least a couple months worth of discussion to understand what the data is, what we understand about the bridge, and what we think we should or shouldn't see in addition to that data. So that kind of puts you late summer to making that sort of decision. Does that seem reasonable?
I guess what I heard Arthur saying was what we could do as far as putting information up as a dashboard and explaining what that information is.
Yeah.
Explaining whether that information means something in relationship to the existing bridge is much farther out, right? So we can put up the data and say, hey, we're collecting a tilt meter and a tilt meter does this, right? And we can start to explain, I think so, because you're gonna see things up there and you're gonna see data. It's not gonna mean anything until you start to understand and see some normalization of the existing structure. And then we're gonna have to sit down and determine the ranges from that, and that's going to take some time because you need to, we're only going to get through the heat of the summer, right? You really need to go through the freezing of the winter to see what the movements are there. We need to go through fruit season, see what the trucks do when you're running truck loadings across there and see what that does. So I think there's going to be some time in there to really understand how the existing bridge is moving, but we can tell you, here's the data we're collecting, here's what this data means or what this data is.
What we think.
But how it, whether it means something in relationship to the old bridge is going to be a much longer time.
We missed a really good opportunity during the centennial when the marching band came along and the whole bridge was sounding like that. I know that would have been a great demonstration.
Would have been definitely a good data set. Data with context is information. So you're just talking about sending the data, putting the data out somewhere. We can go the additional step and provide context over time. And then the public will understand that as information.
I'm suggesting that we as a board state what our intent is. So that staff has a better idea of, is our goal to
understand,
overshare, undershare, just so we can have that discussion and give them some better information from which they can make recommendations.
Right. So Jim, the targets we have out there, James, the targets that we have out there, are they on both the steel as well as just the concrete piers?
I think they're just on the concrete piers.
Yeah, so you're not going to see movement of the steel.
Right.
You're not, and there's no load testing out there.
And you're not going to see
no strain
the
gauges,
trucks going across either unless it's driving the
unless
piers
it's
down.
tilting the piers as it goes over, which I hope not. But I just think we got to get the data, get some data in, and I don't know what the benefit is of sharing if we want to share all that data with the public. I don't know maybe telling them what data we're capturing. But even the guy that's at BNSF, it says that there's anomalies and the alarms go off and you go down there and nothing it's like everything's okay.
The bridge is still there.
The bridge is still there and it's fine and trains are running over it. But I had a couple of instances where they actually stopped trains from going and they come in, they're like, there's no problem.
But part of this data is weather data though, right? That's not.
Weather data will be some of it,
That's more likely to be of general interest.
Water level.
Right.
As well. So, some of the information will be informative, weather data for as much as somebody wants to know what the temperature and wind speed and stuff is.
People want to know that stuff.
Yeah, I look at mine every day. I want it to happen. So.
Right. Thank you, Arthur. Is that
next one?
Want to just keep going through?
Keep going through them. So Clickback County, Jake, I've got some stuff, but I wanted to see if you had anything related to the Clickback County, or do you want me to provide the update we have?
You have the one that Amy gave us?
Yeah.
Good afternoon. The only update I've got from Clickatack County is we had 2 applicants for the alternate position, and one of the applicants pulled his application as he was selling his house. And so I sent Mike the application for the other applicant. I don't know if that got sent out to everyone, but I think they should be making that decision here shortly.
It said on their meeting tomorrow, I think Tuesday.
Tuesdays.
That was it. So they had 2 applicants. First person ended up moving, and they're going with the second one who ended up actually being a good candidate as well.
Great.
So we'll see what their board decides tomorrow.
And I have not had a chance to meet or talk to the applicant.
Okay. Thank you, Jake.
6F mitigation. We have got the I'll call it a draft appraisal using the Yellow Book appraisal process. We are going through that appraisal right now to discuss with the appraiser some maybe informational items that they may not have been aware of with the challenges of development around the waterfront. So that's we're still kind of collecting some of that data, and then we're going to get that data over to the appraiser to see if that would make any adjustments to his appraisal, which is not clear in his appraisal report if he took any of the information into account. So Arthur, if you want to provide any additional information on that.
I don't think I want to talk about the specifics of it, but I did get a text from a developer who I asked, who I put them in touch with, and he said he spent half an hour describing intricacies of fish law, et cetera, to the appraiser, so they would understand the issues of runoff and fish, et cetera, and things that would come up during anyone's development of that parcel. Could I ask you to kind of back up a little bit on this, though, because I've seen some confusion in the general public, and I think maybe even here. First of all, what is the role of the port versus the bridge authority on the 6F mitigation? I got a few more questions, but let's start with that one.
Okay, and I can, Christy, I might need you to jump in here. I'll explain it the best I can. I don't have Stuart on. The port is the owner, I'll say the owner of the 6F responsibility. So they took the loan back in the 70s that in taking that loan obligated a portion of their property to recreation, which is what the 6F is for.
And that was $11,000 or something?
Yeah, some number like that.
Grant, right?
Yeah, it was a grant. And so they are kind of the recipient and owner to maintain that commitment of that amount of area of recreation or those recreational amenities. So whenever something impacts them, they are responsible for finding the mitigation to that. Most of the time what happens is when something like our project causes a impact that changes the recreational use to non-recreational use, the impacting party helps with the mitigation of that because the original owner had nothing to do with it if it wasn't for somebody else's project. Typically that ends up being a DOT that impacts a fixed up parcel, and they participate in trying to mitigate that activity. So that's what we're doing, is helping the port really mitigate for a 6F commitment that they are under the obligation to keep.
Can you explain, there's state parks and there's FHWA who are somehow involved in evaluating, appraising, or evaluating the proposed mitigations. Can you explain that?
Parks and Recreation, which is the more local state representative, who then reports to the National Park Service. And both of them have to agree to the mitigation of the impacts. So it's a dollar for dollar mitigation, and that's why we're doing the appraisal process. So we're getting the dollar figure for our impacts, and then we will have to mitigate for an equal dollar impact. And those parcels will have to be evaluated to make sure that they are complementary to the recreation that you're losing, right? So you can't go buy a non-recreational piece of property. It has to be something that adds a public recreational use that's similar to the recreational use that is being lost.
And there's a term of art that's involved in this discussion concerning community, not community values, but that it has to be beneficial to the recreational community.
Correct. So yeah, so the mitigating parcel has to provide community recreational benefit, right? Which is, if you're taking away a piece of property that has recreational activities, you have to have a similar parcel that gives back similar, and I don't want to say exact, but similar recreational opportunities to the public. So
it's the interpretation of that that's taking us, we're starting to talk now.
Yeah, and the appraisal is called a Yellow Book appraisal. So it's a very defined appraisal process that they use to determine those values. And it's different than acquisition type appraisal that you would if you're acquiring a piece of property.
I just want to make sure everybody has the same baseline, but.
And that process, that yellow book process comes from national parks or from FHWA?
Christy, do you know who defines the Yellow Book appraisal? I think it's just the national appraisal process. I would have to look up who owns the process, but it is a defined process with defined procedures and policies.
But it's a federal process, I guess.
Federal,
Okay.
federal process.
All right.
I got a real problem with this whole thing here. It just.
We're in the club.
Yeah. Using taxpayer money to do what we're kind of being requested to do. Let me see if I can put it into some context here. Here's the old bridge over on this side where it's here that part of the river.
See if I can get the camera over there.
And we get the bridge going out. Okay, the new bridge is coming in here. The difference between the old and the new is we've got a bicycle path and we've got a pedestrian path over here. When we're finished, we're going to take this area out. Plant grass, plant trees and flowers and stuff. But we're replacing it with this, which includes this improvement over here. And we're going to make this really nice and pretty and so on. I don't understand why we have to pay $3.4 million to basically take this chunk of land here, do an equivalent out there, when we're actually going to basically improve this whole area, taking this out. In fact, all of this out. It just doesn't make any sense to me from a financial point of view and a taxpayer point of view. Why are we doing this? And it's just because sometime 30, 40 years ago, somebody took out an agreement for $11,000 or $17,000. And now it's going to cost the taxpayers $3.4 million.
Actually, more than that, because there's also the cost of making it into recreational property.
Yeah, not only that, and we're still going to pay for taking this stuff out anyway.
The other key is that the reason this is triggered is because it's over a certain period of time. It's longer than 12 months or whatever.
Yeah. So I personally think we ought to be challenging this one. And we ought to get our government relations involved in this. Because all we're doing is we're taking taxpayer money from here, we're moving it over there, and we need more money for the bridge. It's not benefiting.
So, but there's two issues, right? There's one is straight recreational loss because we're putting a bigger bridge in, and I would say that's worth about 14 feet compared to the existing bridge. So that's the first thing.
Well, it's specific loss of parking at the marina boat ramp area, right?
Actually, we're putting back the same number of spots back. So
it's going to be lost for longer than 12 months.
It's a temporary.
So that's the second issue.
Anything greater than 18 months.
18
temporary is considered a permanent, and you have to mitigate for that as though you were doing it forever.
Which counts in this case. We need that area for more than 18 months.
That is correct. So you're mitigating for that area, even though you're going to turn it back into a recreational area when the project is done. Because you're using it for more than 18 months, you have to mitigate for it.
Right.
So is it reasonable to assume, though, that if it's just a straight area, what you're talking about is the length of that approach of about 14 feet? Give or take. And then the separate issue is that we can't ask James to build the bridge in 17 months.
That's true.
Okay. All right. I wanted to hear it out loud.
You can ask. That
is true. And we're not allowed to count the improvements, recreational improvements on the bridge as recreational improvements, even though they don't exist today.
Well, so some of that,
so the 14 feet might go up then.
No, actually, it's what, 10 plus 8, it's 18 feet plus your
I'd already taken
I think
that
that
out, but-
as we discussed this, there are two different categories of issue. There are some issues where it is inarguable if the rule is that disturbing it for more than 18 months is equivalent to taking it away. We're taking something away and some mitigation has to happen. So that's inarguable. But what I think is more arguable is the declarations that have been made on what could be used as a mitigation. So can the bike lane be used as mitigation? Can something in the state of Washington be used as mitigation? All of those discussions, I suspect, and I don't know this for sure, maybe someone here does, but there are certain things which are codified and then other things which are agency policy, as things in administrative rules. We don't know at what level those things are. And there's a question of whether we should make some attempt to challenge some things that we've been told are inarguable, like the fact that the bike lane can't be considered, like the fact that that a park right under the bridge in Washington can't be considered. And that's what I hope we could discuss today.
I'm thinking as well, from the aesthetics, the two lanes, the beautification of the two lanes, why can't that count as well?
Yeah, I assumed that it would. Jacob?
Well, this is Jake Edwards. I do have a question.
Go ahead, Jake.
Mike, you mentioned parcels a few times when talking about the mitigation. Can you clarify that mitigations only can be swapped for land purchases? Is that an interpretation or is that a set in concrete ruling?
It's a dollar for dollar exchange, Jake. And it's my understanding it's got to be for recreational use. I believe it has to be land.
Part of the question today is, should we spend some time and money on getting more legal and political assistance on this issue? Right, that's the subject we wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So Jacob Anderson had a comment too, I think.
Thank you, Chair. Having spoke about this during our conversation on the right of way, I agree with Commissioner Fox as well as Commissioner Babich that this actually does warrant some more in-depth look, as well as potentially bringing in some heavier hitters. As in my world, mitigation's best in time and place, and so when we look at taking money, if we are going to be impacting the boat ramp, I think that some of the money that we spend needs to go towards fixing or ensuring that there's boating access to the river that can be in the same place and in time, as well as the rest of the recreational impacts. We're going to be impacting the trail. I think that anything that we can do to keep that value of dollars as close to the bridge as possible is going to best suit the Columbia River Gorge as a whole. I don't like the idea of taking $3+ million of public funds and buying a piece of property 20 miles away for recreational purposes that's not going to be used for anything, just giving it to state parks. If we can keep it on this project, I think that's the best bet. And I think that the goal here is to get the board's consensus to spend some time and effort to move forward and get this accomplished.
Jake, could I get you to talk a little bit more in the meeting that we had earlier in the week? You talked more about the concept that doing the community clearly will value more doing something within a mile of the current project than doing something 20 miles away. And the fact that a mile away, maybe in Washington state, shouldn't be discounted. Right? Could you talk more about that, being that you're a Washington state rep?
Well, I think that the bridge is the bridge and it's one project, and if you can mitigate for recreational purposes that is tied to the same project, it makes logical sense. Being that these were federal dollars, I think that there may be state parks is of course going to want to keep it in Oregon, but I think if state parks, the director of state parks has a conversation with the locals about that, I think there's plenty of discussion that can be had here. I haven't done a deep dive into the state laws and the federal laws on this, but I think this is more of a political nudge that I think we could get a fair amount of help trying to get there.
So the question, do you want to, I was just going to try to wrap it up. So if you have more, that's what you're going to do. Okay. Yeah. So the question is whether we should, whether it's reasonable for, we as a board would like to spend time, money on looking at some of the legal and political aspects of pushing harder on this mitigation question.
And just to kind of put that in context, that's because what we're looking at is something that is significantly above what we had budgeted for this line item. If we had ever, I think we had a number in our head maybe, but
to me, I think it's just more basic that it seems nonsensical for us to be for a $10,000 to $20,000 loan, a grant, to wind up being a $4 million liability, and then for the rules to even if you then accept the $4 million liability, then we're told that we can't do the most logical things that the reasonable people in the community would be thrilled to see done. And instead, we have to do things that don't make a lot of sense to anybody.
Yeah,
that's how I put it.
Good summary. Yeah. Thank you.
So I think that this direction is to get with legal and GR lobbyists and investigate a path forward.
I'm just wondering if we could kind of put down on the spot as to whether what did you hear and what does this make any sense to you?
This makes sense to me. I think we'd have to kind of talk at the staff level and figure out what the path would be. Is just approaching OPRD and connecting with somebody in that agency,
right?
Or is there another way into it? But we'll have to figure that out.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've followed the baseline avenue to resolve this in reaching out to OPRD, and we've kind of ended up in the same spot.
We have, and we've made a couple of different asks and some alternatives and suggestions that have gotten rejected from them. So I think at the staff level, we pursued it as far as I think we can.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to pursue it farther, it's going to take a discussion with legal and a discussion with our political supporters.
It seems like this is the sort of thing where it's not hard to imagine that a 5-minute discussion with either of the governors involved or any of the 4 senators involved, it would be so obvious. Everyone would say, yeah. I mean, just what Mike Fox said earlier, say, yeah, this makes no sense at all. Obviously, we should do the right thing here, but we're not at the level where that discussion can happen. So figuring out how we can get to.
I think we just need to formulate the discussion to have with them about what we're asking for and provide some detail to it.
Right.
Like I said, at the staff level, we've made that we thought that at the staff level that it was a pretty easy, justifiable mitigation to do some things locally. But the responses that we have gotten so far have been no.
I don't want to piss anybody off, but at the same time, we have to answer to the public, and there's stuff that the public won't. The public, yeah, exactly.
We're not the first to.
Bureaucracy. The first answer is no. The second answer is no. Then we get to maybe, and then we hold a good discussion. We just gotta get to that third spot.
So I'm not hearing any disagreement. It seems like we ought to at least peel back a couple more layers and figure out what is a different approach. But I think we followed the basic approach, so we need to kind of regroup and figure out where to put pressure.
Do you want to work this through your government relations committee? Not really government committee. or communications.
I'd be happy to do it, or I'd certainly be happy to deal with this. I think, there's some real questions on what's worth spending time on, right? As you start to dive into it and you discover, okay, this is statutory, this is administrative rules. We don't yet know the answers to that. We're saying, you can't do that. So when we get that information, I think then we know, do we need a legal interpretation? So do we need to get Mark involved? Do we need, what are we actually talking about? We really don't know that yet.
So we can go back and give you the regulations and what we're being asked to follow as far as the regulations. And if there's any grayness in that regulation, we can also present that to you. And then based on that, then we can decide whether or not this is a political ask or a legal ask.
It's the other thing I always go back to is, okay, if we want to do this, what do we need to change about the assumptions to make that happen? So I think that's what Arthur's asking us. What do we need to change to get it the different answer?
Put together a summary and work through those two committees to something to bring back to the full board to take action on.
Let's figure out how to get to an answer that the public will not be laughing at.
We'd be happy and supportive of that.
Yeah.
Does everybody feel better?
No.
I do want to add one little fact, because I did a bunch of research after our last meeting, and I went through a series of about 120 different aerial photos to look at the area and to sort of just figure out what the history of this area was. And in the 1920s, before the first bridge was built, there was actually a swimming beach, which was right in the middle of this parking lot, with a changing room right there. Did I send you? I sent you a picture right up to the meeting. I tried to. I must have missent it. And then it was flooded by the Bonneville Dam, and 1969 was when that land appeared. 68 it was not there, and 69 it was there, and by 1970 there was the toll booth. Everything was there, but so this was.
So it's fill.
This is all fill that was made by the Army Corps of Engineers as part of the project that started in 1962 and was completed by 1969.
And we just want to push a little rock out on the Washington side and take it all away, and it's like, nope, can't do that.
It's a different time.
Yeah, talking about the value, it's like, wow, if would you pay $3.4 million to do development on this side? So that's insane.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows anything about Hood River development would run screaming from that project, with the interchange area management by ODOT, with the Army Corps of Engineers flowage easements, with the fish, with marine fisheries and all the things regulating runoff into the river, and just all the different things that you'd be involved with, plus the known political history of trying to do anything anywhere near there. No one would pay anything like that you have to pay me an awful lot to go anywhere near that site. So it's funny that they have a definite that it's coming out to be a $3.5 million site. That's crazy.
HWA versus.
The last thing was just really was informational. We sent a letter to FHWA after a meeting that we had. That was their response back. It was basically laying out generally what we would need to do if we wanted to pursue something like that, which we understood. They just wanted to communicate it. I think what they communicated in the letter was consistent with what they told us at the meeting.
Do you want to give a quick brief to the meeting today with Better Highways?
We spent today meeting with FHWA, going through some of the temporary construction that needs to happen. So we have the FHWA Oregon division here, as well as Cindy Callahan with FHWA, who handles the liaison with NOAA and NIMS. And we just were going through with them what the temporary construction looks like. So in the NEPA documents, I'm not going to try to get the NOAA and the NIMS one, because I never mess those up all the time.
National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, National Marine Fisheries, something.
Yeah. So we went through with them, just walking through what the, in more detail, what the temporary construction is going to look like, right? In the big picture, we always knew we were going to build trestle, and that's how we needed to access the river. And we're now getting into the details of what that looks like, and being able to just communicate with them what the actual impacts look like of that. And, when you do a NEPA document, you often don't have a contractor involved at that stage in the process. When you get the contractor on board, they go, yeah, that's great. That's not how we do it. And here's how we would like to do it. And you make modifications. That happens on almost every project. The benefit for us is we're doing that pre-construction. So we're getting all that contractor benefit now, and being able to incorporate that into our design and into our project before we settle on a final price. So
On Thursday, I sent you photographs right after the meeting. Yeah, maybe it's too big. I wonder if no one
which it was, because I don't remember it coming through.
But I thought the meeting James, I thought the meeting was actually pretty productive. I think definitely Cindy, I was watching her body language and she was all over. She knew exactly what we wanted to do, and you could tell she was expecting it. The others a little less so, but still were supported. And then after the meeting, Don came up to me and agreed that this was a good meeting, and it looks like things are evolving, and he knows things are going to have to change. So I thought it was good. And I know going down to their office next week to continue with the discussion. It was a good meeting.
We got some action items and deliverables, so cool.
Coming items and
Nothing new there. Just tracking the things that we're working on.
okay. Anybody have any question about any of those items? See if we can put Michael on the spot before he's ready. Okay. And we've already done the audit report. Next meeting, Monday, March 23rd, 2 to 4 here. Is there anything for the good of the order that anybody'd like to add? Guess we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect timing.